Okay. Hey, well, thanks for joining me here at the booth. This has been an experiment for BirdDog, but also I'm excited because I get to meet a whole bunch of people that I don't know anything about. So we get to introduce you to whoever the BirdDog audience is and kind of get them up to speed as to who you are and where you fit in, but also then how Millicast fits into this conversation with BirdDog and the general NDI industry and all that sort of good stuff. So we'll get in a little bit of that. But yeah, first off, why don't you give a little shout out to whoever, let us know who you are and where you kind of hail from and all that sort of good stuff, and then we can get into Millicast. And there's a couple of like fun things that have recently happened, I've heard. So we'll definitely want to chat a little bit about that too.
Amazing.
Awesome. I'll have you pull that mic up too, real close. There you go. So yeah, let's go into it and see. You are, and how do you fit into the Millicast company?
So my name is Ryan Jesperson, and I've been leading the Millicast team for the last few years. And I've been in the streaming and digital video space for going on 20 years.
Yeah.
Spent 5+ years at Wowza, during a lot of the real growth at Wowza. And got to know NDI technology very well through our partners at NewTek. Obviously, Wowza were pioneers in the live streaming space. And then I ran kind of the EMEA side of the business and got to know some of the BirdDog resellers that are based in Europe. And the BirdDog cameras, I got to know Dan and Eamon very well. And obviously, there's just an amazing product, an amazing fit. The IP camera industry was in need of innovation, and I think BirdDog was right place, right time, and an amazing product stack that just brought it to market.
Yeah, well, and there's this huge conversation, right, about how like we're making the cameras and we're getting all the video to IP, and then it's this conversation about, well, how do you, like, if you get it to ones and zeros, which is basically network data, then how, like, you can send it anywhere in the room, and then anywhere in the building, and then anywhere like within the company, and then, oh, well, wait a minute, there's this thing, the internet, and like maybe we could ship this thing around the world and that sort of stuff. And so the conversation has progressed where it was like we could make network cameras and they'd be great for studios, but then it was like, well, hang on. And I feel like there's this slow realization in the IP realm of the options are kind of limitless. And as from what I know of Millicast, which isn't a whole lot, but we've used it for shipping, video around stuff we do with cloud. The options all of a sudden become like, oh, well, we can do that because we can send it anywhere in the world. So I love that idea of, once we get video to IP, then what do we do with those packets and how do we ship them around? So how long have you been with Millicast?
The company's been around for about 3.5 years.
Yep.
Started as a startup, and then the big news is that we recently got acquired by Dolby.
Okay.
Dolby has been getting into, and this is Dolby, not Adobe.
Right, yeah.
So Dolby, D-O-L-B-Y,
yeah.
obviously is one of the pioneers in the audio space, and we're doing Dolby Vision and in the broadcast space, but they're definitely migrating into IP and into cloud, and Dolby.io is their cloud division. And Millicast is just very synergistic with a lot of the technology that's being built around WebRTC. And, I think, NDI and BirdDog IP cameras, they solve the contribution side, and this migration towards remote production that just make PTZ cameras at broadcast quality levels just so much more appealing to not just live event producers, but tier 1 broadcasters who are looking to try to reduce their costs, especially during COVID. It's been all this kind of migration to these remote workflows.
Yeah.
And from a distribution perspective, the streaming industry has been really grasping at straws, trying to find a low latent protocol that actually is broadcast quality.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of what we've been doing at Millicast. It started with streaming experts and WebRTC experts, and kind of this coming together of the broadcast and streaming worlds, mixing it with the web native nature of WebRTC to bring the interactivity at a global scale through what we use every day, which is the web browser.
Well, that's one of the things that we talk about with a lot of folks, but like TV broadcasters, and that's the thing where their talent, especially like you mentioned with COVID, that was kind of like, to me, that was like the pressure cooker, right? Like all of a sudden, everybody needed everything right now, and like, how are we going to do this when we're all locked up? And so they were sending freight cases essentially to hosts' homes, and they were basically saying, okay, like, set this up, plug this in, plug it into your router or your switch or whatever you have at your house, and then we'll run it from there. And so from our standpoint, it was an integration of cloud, and like, here's how you do it and here's how you set it up. But then they were like, yes, but we still need it to be the lowest latency possible, and we need it to be WebRTC or what have you. And so then we had this conversation with Millicast about like, hey, like we could really make something happen here.
Yeah.
And that's been a great partnership. We've been hanging out for a couple of years. I mean, almost pretty much. If you're only 3 years old, then it's pretty much the entire time.
Pretty much from the beginning. I think very early on, we built an integration between NDI and WebRTC, kind of a transmuxer. I think NDI is great from a contribution perspective, but from a mass distribution perspective, over the public internet, it's not a standard. So I think protocols work well for certain use cases. And obviously NDI has gained in popularity because it solved a very major need that the industry has had for collaborating in real time and getting real time broadcast out of the local network with NDI5 and some of the newer things. Now we get over the public cloud, right?
Yeah.
I think really the WebRTC side, I think what it's really added is interactivity. So one particular event we did very early on, I think it's about a year and a half ago at the beginning of COVID, was Amazon Prime was doing the AVP Beach Volleyball Tournament. And you had NBC, that was the production company, the broadcast company in charge, and they did almost the entire event with a skeleton crew, and it was all through BirdDog IP cameras remotely.
Nice.
And through Millicast as a way to show the live remote feed as a REMI production workflow. So production studios staff in New York or in LA could make decisions in real time without having to use a custom client or a decoder. They could actually just do it in their web browser.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody about how we were sending, like where you're able to basically get the best of the best, like producers and guys that run shows, because we can send those feeds to their house, basically. They go to a web browser, they can pull up the feeds and they can like cut the show from wherever they are. And so no longer is it we fly them out, they stay overnight, they go to the show, they stay overnight, they fly back home. It's like money. Now it's like, well, we could actually send this all to your house as long as you have a halfway decent internet connection, and you can do it all from there. And it's like, so then it becomes like, well, who can we get? And it means that the guy who's doing it doesn't have to leave his house and doesn't have to leave his community and his family and all that stuff, especially during COVID. But then it's also, we can get him at a lower rate because we don't have to fly him out, and he can do it all from his house. He can do two or three shows a day if he wants.
Absolutely, yeah. And then there's a lot of major broadcasters that have an eco side to it. They want to reduce costs, reduce emissions, and a lot of that isn't lip service. A lot of people really do care about the environment, and this remote thing is a time saver, it's a money saver, there's a lot there. And it's not just true of live production, what we think of producing a live event like a big sporting event or a big concert. Really there's the remote post-production side of it where BirdDog, obviously you guys started with IP cameras, and then now you have encoders. I can't tell you how many customers we have doing Final Cut workflows, doing Adobe Premiere workflows, pulling NDI sources out from their master preview because they're collaborating in real time doing VFX. They're doing post-production of. So that's a very big space where it's really grown for BirdDog. And we have all the major top Hollywood studios working with us, enabling those remote production workflows. You can have, like, I just saw the Hans Zimmer interview where he did the Dune soundtrack. He's got a team of 300 artists all over the world collaborating in real time producing these scores, right, for these movies. And they're doing it all with a master output from Pro Tools, with getting the video composite, and then they're outputting that through NDI into a WebRTC in browser, sharing it with each other around the world so they can produce things in real time and not have to fly people forward and back. So I think these efficiencies, this is really a revolution. I think it was already on its trend. I think really the pandemic has really accelerated that kind of media gold rush. It's such an interesting, it's such a crazy, because like I started with BirdDog about 3 years ago, and just watching it, I mean, I was fortunate to be like right at the beginning of COVID and watching that like acceleration basically. And now we're out the other end, we're back at NAB, and it's, there's so much that has changed, but enabling people to do what they do where they are instead of requiring them to move or to fly out or constantly be away or all that. And again, you get that, you kind of get the opportunity then to have 300 contributors to a score, or you have the ability to get the guy you want to run the show because he can do it from his house or whatever it is. It's this unbelievable kind of like revolution that's, who knows? I mean, it's accelerating as we speak, and companies like Millicast, companies like BirdDog, we're pushing that envelope constantly to see. And we, I said this to somebody, we have a vision for our cameras, and like we picture people using them and as we develop them and that sort of thing, but then people get them and they run with it, and they put them in places we never thought possible, or we never like, oh yeah, that's an interesting use case, but like, yeah, it totally makes sense why you would go that route. So I love those sorts of things. I love those stories that come out where it's just like, here's how
NDI is reducing our costs, or here's how NDI is enabling this, this great thing that's happening, or all that sort of good stuff. And again, I think it's partnerships like Millicast that make it all sing.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think the difficult thing is that the entire streaming industry had this solution with Flash RTMP where we could do things sub-second.
Yeah.
20 years ago. Obviously, that changed. This kind of migration to HLS, creating latent workflows, solved the need of a lot of the industry. But what we did away with is interactivity. I think what you're getting of the interactivity is not just controlling the pan tilt zoom capabilities of these beautiful cameras and doing it remotely and producing things remotely. Right. What about the audience interactivity? How can we build protocols and workflows? And I think a lot of the acceleration that happens is not necessarily the value of what you're trying to do, which is the very nature of interactivity. We're building watch together experiences, right, with WebRTC and so on. How are we capturing those cameras with really high production? How can celebrities engage with, sports figures engage with their audiences? And they want to do it with broadcast quality, and they want to do it in browser. So that's the huge migration that we're seeing. And then you're seeing, what I'm surprised at NAB is every major vendor, broadcaster, is interested now in betting and gambling, which has been a huge thing in Europe and in Asia Pac. But America's been way behind the ball on that. And now everyone, to do that, you need to do sub-second latency as a very nature of its product. So that is funny how latency has now become a huge topic for interactivity. Human nature craves that interaction in addition to the actual value and features you want to add to your broadcast production.
That's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if that becomes more of like a standard requirement than anything, because if the low latency stuff needs to be as quick as possible, and it has to, it might become the expectation over time. And so again, our companies, if you will, between the two of us, is not that there are companies, but between the two of us, we'll see that become more and more and more of a requirement. But that will, again, continue to push that envelope. So
absolutely,
I'm excited about that.
I'm excited, and I think Dolby's the acquisition of Millicast has legitimized WebRTC as a true broadcast protocol. If there's one person who knows broadcast, it's probably Dolby in this industry for 65 years.
Absolutely.
And a lot of our roadmap is adding like Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos into these WebRTC experiences.
Oh, nice.
So now we're going to get just the best quality HDR10, all this in live workflows, which I think is very exciting. And that's coming very soon. So I'm excited to see what we can do with BirdDog and continue to build these kind of innovative workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about that. So whatever we can do, we'll make that happen.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. This is a lot of fun. I like talking about this stuff and figuring out kind of maybe what's possible on the horizon. That's exciting news. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate that, and we'll see you around the show more than likely.
Yeah, thanks again.
Awesome. Take care of yourself.